Hello!
Hi, guys.
There's some too far close there. Oh, wait, we need to do it like this.
Oh,
Hi.
is that the way? That's the way it's going to work tonight. Oh, we're just getting started, too.
Backwards. Okay. Hello. Today, what are we talking about? We say that every week, don't we? Grandma. Well, whoops, I lost my title. Oh dear. Un momento, please. My title is.
We can maybe tell you.
What is my title? Grandma didn't know she did it that way. Great Depression tips and stockpiling. That is what we are talking about today. So, my grandmother is here visiting, and no, she's not going to be on the show.
I was going to say, you better tell them first thing. She won't show her face.
She refuses to show her face.
But she did give us a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about, the information.
So we got to talking with Grandma about some things. She's like, well, we never did that.
She's 94, so she kind of knows what she's talking about back then.
So Mom has got on this kick of, what do you call them? Vintage reenactment videos, yes. I guess you would call them.
From the 1950s and 60s, yeah.
No, they're not from the 1950s and 60s. They're from now, and they're acting like they're in the 1950s and 60s. These are old movies Mom's watching. These are YouTubers now that are pretending like they're living in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Yeah. Notice they're not pretending like they're living in the Depression. In southeastern Colorado, in the Dust Bowl. No, they aren't. And so we got to talking with Grandma as Mom was watching these shows. So,
well, even I was from the 50s, and I thought there's something wrong here. And I told Tara, I didn't remember this stuff. And I got to thinking, I think people are getting a really weird idea of what it was like back then, or even during the Depression things. We're not translating the stuff right or something. So
yeah. And a lot of our recipes in our Dining on a Dime cookbook right there, 25% off right now, got to throw that little plug in, are from the 20s to the 50s.
Oh yeah, they're really old recipes, because there's Tara's great grandmas, and my grandmas, so they're older recipes, and they have lots of tips in there of what they did back then. We didn't say that's what they are, but that's where we got them from, and that's how we use them.
So tell them what you saw, Mom, in your video.
Oh, okay. Well, what they would do is they were enacting a 1950s day or week, and I noticed first off the bat, they were showing where they were getting their information from, either some books or magazines that were from that time period. That told me right away something was not quite right, because I'm thinking, if I open up a magazine from nowadays, do you guys know how fancy the houses look and how the models in the book dress up and all that type of thing? And so I thought, most of us don't do what those magazines, I mean, we love the tips and we love the ideas, but most of us don't have magazine perfect homes. We aren't dressed like magazine perfect models. And these gals.
Now, I am sure this is what Grandma. Is this not what Grandma looks like?
It is not what your grandma wore pedal pushers and shorts and tennis shoes.
I think Grandma was laying on the sink eating her cupcake when Grandpa came home.
Grandma's sitting back there laughing.
And she's winking at Grandpa as she's stirring her stew with her hair all done up.
Yeah, lucky Grandpa.
Yeah, and so Mike said lucky Grandpa.
Oh.
But they were getting their ideas from the wrong source and really weren't, that wasn't what reality was. Magazines and books are a lot of times not reality at all. They would do their hair up. Every morning they get up and do these bouffants that you'd see on pinup girls. They put this heavy duty makeup on. Well, most of the time you didn't have air conditioning. Nobody put heavy duty makeup on in the 50s. with the air conditioner. Some of them even were doing these fancy eyelash things. And I mean, they spent ages just getting their hair done.
Well, you had to worry about like your hair molding in the curlers. If it didn't dry fast, there was no blow dryers.
Yeah, my mom lived in Florida and she had long hair and she'd curl her hair up and it would take so long to dry in Florida that it molded. So she finally just had to cut her hair short while they lived down there. You know, this is the reality of what this is. And they would put girdles. Grandpa cut it. And they would put a girdle on and these stockings, you know, to do and high heels to do their housework in. I'm thinking, I never saw this in the 50s. My mom never did that, you know, or anything. Oh, and they put pearls on. They don't realize pearls back then, you could buy imitation ones, but people didn't wear them a whole lot because they were so obviously imitation. You just didn't wear them that much.
It was tacky.
Yeah, it was tacky. So real pearls were extremely expensive and they were handed down from, you know, mother to daughter. Those were saved for special occasions, but these gals were putting their pearls on every day, you know, for each ordinary day to do their housework in. Totally off the, you know, none of it was working out. So is anybody hollering or asking?
Nope, keep going.
Oh, keep going. So that's why I thought we do the same thing with our food, you know, our cooking meals. We think grandma made these big, huge meals every day. You know, dad would come home from work and we'd sit down to these monster big meals and stuff like that. They did it simple, especially during the Depression time and the war time. You had very simple meals. And like my mom said, they would have one item. They would maybe have macaroni and cheese. That was, if you look it up, that was really common back then, the Kraft macaroni and cheese. It was easy. They could slap it on the table. They'd have a bowl of chili. I mean, it was just, they didn't have 4 or 5 different dishes, you know, courses for their meal or anything like that. They loved making Jell-O. Jell-O was a big deal. It was simple. In the summer with no air conditioning, you didn't bake cake and cupcakes, you know, every day in the oven.
Everybody says, you mean Grandma wasn't June Cleaver or Harriet Nelson?
No. Grandma was not June Cleaver at all. My mom, and I know a lot of the women, they would run around a lot of times barefooted, you know, doing their housework. They didn't even wear shoes, let alone high heels.
Bert said maybe the upper class dressed up every day. Well, you'd have to be really upper class.
Well,
I mean,
and it would be like nowadays too.
She said maybe upper middle class. I would think it would be the upper class that would.
Yeah, the upper class, the upper middle class. They probably didn't either. The upper class had servants or people that did the laundry, that cooked for them and that type of thing. So they basically were a lot like what we are now. You get up in the morning, you pull your hair back in a ponytail. You just would pull your hair back in a ponytail, the easiest thing you could do. Usually you didn't wear any makeup. Sometimes, like before your husband came home, you might slap a little bit of something on. You had a house dress, or my mom usually just wore pedal pushers. If it was summer, she'd wear shorts, and you'd wear tennis shoes or loafers or something like that to do your work in. You know, it was really a lot more like today than what we think. Oh, and they thought they cleaned all day long, nonstop.
Well, Tammy says, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm about to spend 2 hours doing my hair and putting on my pearls on to work on my housework alone until 4:30 when Hunt comes home.
Well, they would clean. Some of these videos, they would say, this is what the housewife did on a daily basis. I mean, they would work, they would wash all the windows inside and out. They would vacuum all the drapes and the furniture. They changed sheets in every bedroom, you know. They would put in 2 or 3 loads of laundry. They would scour down the stove, clean the oven out. They would mop all the floors. They would vacuum. They would dust. They would get rid of the spider webs. And I'm watching, I'm thinking, that didn't happen. Not that my mom wasn't a good housekeeper, but you didn't do it like that. We would wash the windows on one day, but we didn't do it on the day we deep cleaned the house or we changed the sheets. You change the sheets on one day and you vacuum on another day. It was pretty much like you do housekeeping now. We did seem to keep on top of it a little more just because it was more important. You know, there was an attitude, a little bit of a different attitude that you wanted to have a little bit neater, cleaner house. But they were pretty much like homes like we have now. Some days mom was tired and everything didn't get done. And the only thing that they did right in these videos is cleaned their kitchen after every meal. And they cleaned it up spotless, because one gal said, this is so wonderful because all day long I walk in here and my kitchen is clean all the time. And we did do that. After every meal, we'd all clear the table and wash up the dishes and the countertops. And we would do that because we didn't have a dishwasher, that we didn't wait till the end of the day and then put everything in the dishwasher in one big load. So we did very carefully clean and put up all the dishes. So at the end of the day, you had dinner dishes, you did the few of those up, and, it wasn't so bad. But that was one thing that they did do, right. And I was just thinking, looking at your lipstick, they put this bright red lipstick on, and I'm looking, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at them, but it was so, I was trying to envision my mom with this bright red lipstick. And then when they were putting the girdle, I thought, they're going to do housework all day in this girdle. I mean, with garters on it and these stockings. And I remember even when they put the stocking, we only wore the stockings, my mom did, for church or something really special. And she'd come running out when she got ready for church. Are my seams straight? Are my seams straight? I remember her running out, making sure her seams. You didn't do that on a daily basis, Then there was another magazine article for Tupperware. Well, they had all these women walk into this Tupperware party. They were dressed in what we'd probably call business suits nowadays, these beautiful business suits, high heels, gloves, and hats. My mom had Tupperware parties all the time. I don't remember any of the ladies showing up in that. It was just the pants they maybe would have a clean, crisp shirt on, and that was the extent of it. So it was, I think we're trying to say this, that for you, a lot of times we kill ourselves trying to be like they used to do or do things like they used to do. We have this elaborate, unreal vision of what things used to be years ago. And I'm just, we need to start thinking more realistic about some of this stuff and not kill ourselves trying to mimic something that wasn't even a reality. Did that make sense, what just came out of my mouth? So what did you want to say? Did we have a question or anything?
I'm saying nothing.
What do you mean you're saying nothing?
Let's see. Rebecca says, I want to know how much, or Jennifer says, I want to know how much chocolate do we need to send Grandma on an episode? Grandma doesn't really eat a lot of chocolate.
Grandma, she does not.
Long John Silver's. Grandma would do Long John Silver's.
Yeah, Grandma doesn't do chocolate, surprisingly. So I make up for it, though.
I keep telling her she's just, come on.
We can't talk her into doing it.
Being stubborn. Let's see, where was I? Oh, Rebecca, she said, we didn't have much stuff either. It was a little easier to clean because of being able to get to the walls and not so many surfaces to dust. That's true.
Yeah.
People back then didn't collect the stuff that they do now. And like when Mom was born, Grandma and Grandpa were living in a 10-foot trailer, and they had a newborn, and Grandma was doing laundry in the bathroom. I don't know, were they in the barracks?
No, what it was in a trailer park, and they had a big concrete building where they had the bathrooms that you had to go to. So she had to take the diapers down there, wash them out in these public bathrooms where everybody shared in the trailer park, these public bathrooms. And she had to take the diapers down. They were cloth diapers, rinse them out in those things, and do it like that. So it wasn't too much fun. Oh, gross. That would be so gross. I'm sorry. Cloth diaper.
They were your diapers.
I know they were my diapers.
And so we noticed that people like to glorify the way Grandma did it. And, I want to go live off grid. I want to go living off grid nowadays. You're not really living off grid. I mean, if you have solar panels, no offense to all my off-grid YouTuber friends, buddies. I'm not saying anything bad about you. I'm just saying people have this romantic notion, but living off-grid nowadays, you have solar panels so you can do a little refrigerator. You have little buddy heaters, so you're not having to mess with wood stoves or chopping wood. You're not having to haul water. You've got pumps that are electrified with solar. You've got you know, it's not the same as back in the old days. And people glorify canning. And they're just like, oh, yes, I love to can. I just want to can. And they go on and on about how great canning is. But nowadays, canning is easy. I'm sorry, dear. Get ready to start deleting. I said the word canning. But nowadays, compared to the way Grandma did it, canning is easy.
Well, my grandma, she had to go down into this dark cellar concrete basement. And it was very hard, difficult for her to get down those cellar steps. She had 2 little tiny burner things down there. And they would have to do their canning down there because that was the coolest place they could find. They were from Iowa, and she would have to can down there, and it was a job. And it's like my mom said, we only can 2 things. They can corn and ketchup, which is an odd combination, you know, but she had a small, maybe a little bit of garden, like a tomato plant or something like that, a cucumber plant, but it was so hot and miserable, and they had to go down. Well, once she got into the cellar, it was hard for her to get back up, so she'd have to send the kids back and up to the kitchen to get a spoon, to get this or that. So things weren't quite as easy, you know, as what we think of. And I wanted to mention, too, when you were talking about living off grid, one thing about living off grid nowadays, which I would love to live off grid. Tara and I, neither one have a problem with that. We both enjoy doing that. But what living off grid nowadays is, you, in the back of your mind and your heart, the rest of the world is not off grid. So if push comes to shove and all of your crop is destroyed for 2 years in a row, you know you can go to a grocery store someplace and get something. If your child is laying there and you think dying or something horrendous, like an arm got cut, you know you can throw them, you know, get them in the car and maybe, or call for Flight for Life or something and get them help. And all that is a little bit more of a security. To totally be off grid like they used to be, where everybody else was distance and distance away. They didn't have emergency facilities. They didn't have, you know, if their crop went bad, everybody else's crop went bad probably too at the same time. So nobody had any way of getting any type of food. So I think there's more of a security nowadays going off grid than there was back then, and emotional and mental.
I'm not dissing anybody.
No, we don't have a problem with going off grid at all.
It's not the same.
It's a little bit different, and we're just trying to we're just trying to tell the reality of what the difference was.
And one of my kids lives off grids, but they're able to go over to the truck stop and do their laundry in the washer and dryer. They don't have to sit outside with a washboard. Well, first of all, they don't have to go haul the water. Then they don't have to heat up the water some way on a fire, usually. Then they're not outside with a washboard over a hot fire doing the laundry. They just run over and throw their clothes in the laundry at the truck stop. They go and dump their sewage at the truck stop while they're doing their laundry. They fill up with water while they're at the truck stop. And so nowadays, people are just so incredibly spoiled.
Not off-grid people.
No,
well,
I mean,
just Americans are
spoiled in general. I mean, we just are so comfortable. Even the absolute poorest of people are still so comfortable, and they still eat well. And we really don't know what true hardship, true suffering is for probably 99% of the people who live in America. I'll give 1 or 2% that actually have really hard times. But even the poorest of poor people usually have a roof over their head and food. You know, and back then,
they didn't even have welfare.
Yeah, you didn't know.
You didn't have nothing. Yeah,
you didn't know if you're
churches would give some stuff out, but that was all. But I think one of the main points we don't want you to miss that we're talking about all this is we want everybody to kind of face the reality of how hard things could maybe get, or to be a little bit prepared and start thinking along these lines. You know, start thinking, what if I don't have water? Do I have things set up so that I'll be able to handle not having water, you know? And just to start thinking, could it get that bad if the power goes out, you know, even for a hurricane, even for a tornado or something like that, or an ice storm? Are you prepared? I one prepper guy, he said, I've used this story before. He said his wife, a hurricane came through. They lost their power, was going to be out for a couple of weeks. And she refused to cook the food that he'd prepped and saved. She said, I'm not going to do all that cooking out on the, the burner thing or whatever, and made him drive like 30 minutes or so. It was a long ways to a McDonald's. He had to stand in line for an hour or more because everybody else was going to McDonald's, and drive all the way back because his kids wouldn't eat the food he'd prepped with, and his wife refused to cook. So we don't want you to be in that situation. We want you to be a little calm and prepared and do some figuring of what can you do, that type of thing. Not to holler at anybody. We just want reality check to come in to a few people.
Sandy says, my parents moved us to the top of a freaking mountain in Appalachia in 1973. Said, I had to climb a mountain after school. Not kidding.
But that's really true.
You can just see that. Oh,
but
goodness.
It was a little, I was listening to these college kids where they asked some questions, about how much is 6 times 7? These kids couldn't answer these questions, or who fought in the Civil War, in the United States, or how many states was in the United States. Some said 13. Some thought maybe it was 16 states in the United States. All these really crazy answers they were coming up with. And I thought, they can't think. They were college. One was standing in his graduating gown outfit, and they couldn't answer these simple questions. And I'm thinking, this can get kind of scary. And another thing, when this illness happened a little while back, how many people panicked?
But toilet paper for something that doesn't cause issues.
How many people were so afraid? And do you know what? Depression and suicide skyrocketed, really skyrocketed. And this was just a bad illness. Not that I'm not treating it lightly, but it was a bad illness. You combine a bad illness like that, not having power or water, what are people going to do? If the suicide rate, depression rate was that bad, I don't want you guys to do that. There's no need for you to, when a disaster happens, for you to react like that in fear and terror. You start using the part of your brain to think and figure out, how can I manage? What can I do? What can I fix now and get a little bit prepared? Will I be able to handle? It's like when I told you guys to shampoo your hair without using water out of your kitchen sink, but just get water from the bathroom and wash your hair. The one gal said she was so horrified at how hard that was just to wash her hair over the kitchen sink without running water, that she went and cut it all off, her hair off. I didn't mean for you guys to be quite so drastic like that, but she realized.
We have to be careful what we say.
Yeah, we do. But you may have to cut your hair short in a situation like that, really, And so she was at least thinking, and I wouldn't have thought of cutting my hair short, but that was a good solution if she was in a bad situation. And so now we're not telling you to go cut your hair off necessarily, but we want you to realize how hard some of this stuff is, to be prepared for it emotionally. Are you taking a shower every single day? You're going to have to maybe be prepared to take a shower, if you're lucky, once a week,
Whoa, whoa.
Michael's saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. And that type of thing. So I just want you to think these things through. You can't change your clothes every single day. You may have to wear them for a whole week. People didn't change their clothes back then every day. I know that sounds horrifying, but you changed your underwear, but you didn't change your outer clothes. Because can you imagine doing all the laundry you have now, changing your clothes every day? How much laundry you would have to do by hand? It'll quit really fast, when you start having to wash all that stuff by hand, heat up the water before you could even wash those clothes. Little things. Use half the amount of laundry soap that you've always used, because if you have to wash clothes by hands, you'll be forever rinsing, trying to get that soap out, and that type of thing. Shampoo your hair. Start shampooing your hair only one time instead of twice. How many times have I said, we don't wash our whole body down or wash our hands off, rinse them, and then soap everything down again? Why do you do it with your hair? I don't know how many people have said they've stopped shampooing their hair twice, and the money you will save, you'll save half the amount. You'll buy half the amount of shampoo is what you'll do. And look at the money and water you'll save. All this stuff saves water. That's why we're having you do these things, because if water's short, you know, and you don't have power and stuff, you'll have to learn how to start saving money. Did I run on too much? I'm talking way a lot tonight.
You're on a
Sorry,
roll.
I am on a roll here.
Threads and Jars says, that was me. I gave myself the buzz cut and still love it.
Way to go. But you know, I would never thought of just totally cutting my hair like that, but you may have to do that. And that's not a bad idea, but I just had to chuckle when we first got that email.
Well, because we just never honestly thought of that solution.
No. So, but you guys do have some good ideas, and we love you posting them on there and letting us know some of your thoughts and things.
Oh my, everybody's agreeing with you, and they're saying yes. People shampoo their hair twice. That's new to me. Oh yeah, people.
Yeah, most people do.
You know, and they don't think to know. Like they would use cornstarch in their hair to soak up the oil and then just brush it out.
And not even use water or soap
stuff
on it.
like that. But Wanda says, what about filtering bath or dishwater to drink? So you could do that, but I mean, if you have a Berkey filter, you could do that. But more than that, it would be like the whole family uses one bath water.
Yeah.
You wouldn't.
Then you take the bath water and water your garden with it, you know, or something like, or mop the floor, you know, with the first mopping with it.
Or wash the dishes in the dirty bath water and then rinse with clean water or something, you know. You would reuse it as many times as possible.
And not filter, because one thing too, this stuff is going to take so much work and energy. You're going to be exhausted. So that's another thing you need to do, is to think about, I won't be able to do all this stuff physically. You just won't be able to. You try to think of methods and ways that you can use the least amount of energy. And filtering water might take a little bit more time and energy than if you use that water in another place, like on the garden, or, you know, mopping off something that got dirty on the floor or whatever, but depending on the level of the dirtiness of the water. But, you know, that's what you need to start looking for things on how to do this, because you will have zero energy. Can you even imagine? I had to heat up water in a pan because I didn't have any hot water for the kids to take a bath in. Well, the first time I did it, I heated up about 3 big, huge Dutch oven pans full of water. Just carrying that water from the stove to the bathroom was kind of tricky and nerve-wracking, because you have boiling water and you're trying to carry it through, you know, a couple of rooms or whatever. But I did 3 of those, poured it in, and then had to pour cold water in to cool it down. I learned real quick, you put the hot water in first, not the cold. One time I put cold water in this deep. Do you know how much hot water it would have taken to boil, to bring it up to warm temperature even? So I learned you put the hot water in first, and then you cool it down with cold water. But even after I did 3 to 4 pans in a Dutch oven for them to take a bath, we still only had maybe not even 2 inches of water in that bathtub. And so you've got to think of this stuff, or even practice trying some of it. That's why they just use metal tubs, because they weren't so big. It didn't take as much water, among other things, you know, and the metal tubs held the heat better and that type of thing. So all these things are little tiny factors that you learn when you practice a couple of these things. That's why I had you shampoo the hair, so you get a general idea. Oh, trying to pour a whole bucket pan of hot water on your head to rinse your hair isn't going to work. You have to pour it into a pitcher, you know, to rinse your hair. And then what you do when you didn't have enough water in the pitcher, now you're hanging over the sink with soapy, you know, wet dripping hair and no water left. And there you hang, type of thing. And you learn all these things by just practicing them once in a while.
Yeah. Okay, Sobu 2008 says, hello from Texas. I just received my Dining on a Dime Volume 2. Thank you for your wisdom and your cookbooks. I love your channel. You've been a blessing to me. Oh, thank you. And then we also had Michelle say, my planner arrived today. It's awesome. It's
Oh,
huge.
thank you, guys.
Yes, this
That's
is
so
huge.
nice.
8.5 by 11. You can see my hand. It's huge. And 365 days. Or, yeah, 365 undated days. So if you want our planner, we have that. And our cookbooks are 25% off. What you didn't vacuum or mop and heels, Sandy wants to know. Let's see. Okay, so do you have something on your list that you want to go through?
No, I don't know what you want to. Do they have any more questions?
No questions yet, just comments. So you
I
can go
don't
ahead.
have a whole lot, unless you want to talk about the meals or anything like that.
So for meals, Per Warrior says we were all assigned a job after dinner. So that's what we did too. Like the kids, we would have dinner, and I would tell so we would rotate weeks, and one kid would unload the dishwasher, one kid would load the dishwasher, and then another kid would do the vacuuming, and we would rotate through every week. Well, but to clear the table, I would tell each kid, I would add up what's on the table and tell each kid, okay, you take 4 things, or all of you take 4 things and put it where it belongs.
And their own plates and silverware.
And their own plates and silverware and cups. And that's how we did it. And that's how most families did it. But moms have gotten to the point where they're doing it all for the kids, and they don't make their kids do any chores or anything.
Well, and yeah, the kids should be doing, the whole family should be helping to pick up, clear the table and do all that type of thing. And it's important. Mom shouldn't have to do it all by herself, but mom does need to stay in the kitchen, because what she can do is, I found out the kids would talk to me. That was the time of day that they would spend a lot of time talking to me when we were all working, clearing up the table. I would wipe the counters up. I would sometimes put the leftovers away. I would do some of the little bit odder jobs that the kids and maybe the husband wasn't quite up to par on doing, that type of thing. And that way we were working together. The kids do so much better if you try to work together with them on stuff. A lot of times, if mom's in there, and I could instruct them and tell them how to do it. A lot of moms just say, go put that in the fridge or go do it this way. Well, I would tell them where to put it or how to do it or how do you wash this dish or dry it or whatever,
Bounty in the Bad Done said we had a hot water tank on the side of the wood stove. Mom did the same thing. But she had a galvanized tub in the kitchen. Yeah. 4 kids use the same bath water. Yeah.
You start with the cleanest child, whatever child's the cleanest, and then you work your way up to the dirtiest person.
Yeah.
Is how you would do that. Yeah.
Wow, everybody's making stuff in the cookbooks.
Oh, thank you, guys. I hope you're enjoying that.
Shayla's ham and noodles, Ellie's scones.
That's one thing too. They used all their leftovers, They really used everything. And we do have a good leftover section. I've mentioned this before, but we've got a really good, to tell you how people say, well, my family won't eat leftovers. These aren't leftovers where you just stick them dinner from the night before in the microwave and warm them up. These are actually recipes or ideas that your family wouldn't even know that they are the leftovers, type of thing. So,
yeah. Whoa. Oh my.
Well, a lot of people talking about.
Yeah, everybody's talking about everybody taking a bath together.
I know.
Mavis says, years ago we had a bridge burn. A lot of people freaked out because they were used to doing things one way. People need to learn to do things different for a lot of reasons. That's
the point I think we're trying to explain. You put it perfectly. Yeah.
And people, you're going to have to learn to, you're not going to get everything you want.
You're going to have to relax a little bit and do, not be stressed that you can't take that shower every day or change those clothes, because you're going to be dealing with outside stresses, a lot of outside stress. So if you have inside stresses that you're having to deal with, you won't make it. That's why I was trying to explain that when this illness happened, so many people crashed and burned at that time because they weren't used to having to deal with outside stresses. And so you need to prepare your family,
people,
and that is true. You can't deal with both things at one time. So if you have the one where, okay, I can't take a shower, maybe, but once a week, I'll live. You will not die. I know it seems hard to believe. You will not die from not taking a shower. You'll feel gross and yucky and just think, well, I'm going to feel gross and yucky and move on, with it.
Marguerite says, I had an aunt who was very thrifty. She would wash the dishes in a metal pan, put the pan with the dishwater under the sink, and would wash the dishes the next day using the same water.
Yeah.
Well, and like in Europe, they don't rinse their dishes.
Yeah. So, these are ways that you have to save water the best you can. And
let's see. Andy made our chocolate frosting from our Dining on a Dime cookbook for cupcakes, and she had so much left over, she'd been eating it on toast. Wow.
It's good on graham crackers too, if you want to just put the frosting on graham crackers.
Tammy says, I've learned so much from your cookbooks and ebooks on simple things like portion size and how to cut down time in the kitchen.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you guys can still get our books. We have them in stock, and we have more on the way. We pre-bought for the year because we were concerned about supply chain issues. And that's another thing. Start thinking about things that you're going to have to do now if you can't get something later. So like today, they're talking about a huge economic hurricane coming is the term that they used. And we have 1.5 acres here, and we're mowing. And we're mowing, and we don't have a riding lawnmower, and we're mowing, and we're mowing. The boys are real happy that we're mowing. But, Mike and I were talking, and we were like, if things crash, people are going to start selling stuff off like that. And we can get a riding lawnmower for a really good deal. So we're like, okay, we're going to keep mowing. Everybody mow 20 minutes a day until people start selling off their lawnmowers, and then we'll get us a good deal. But you've got to start thinking, okay, what do I need to get now, and what can I hold off and wait on? Like mowing. Yeah, it's no fun everybody having to mow 20 minutes a day, but if you do that, the yard still gets mowed. Well, tennis shoes, let's say the supply chain breaks down and you can't get tennis shoes. Well, I would go ahead and buy an extra pair of tennis shoes for everybody now, or the next size up for the kids or something like that. So just start thinking about things, how you use them, what you may need, what you do need, and start planning for those things.
Well, see, I found there was the rotary lawnmowers, the reel-to-reel type lawnmowers that you don't use gas or anything. There was a free one not right close to Tara's house last summer, brand new almost. It was in great shape. And I have a tiny, tiny yard. And I said, we need to get that, because how are you going to mow your yard, if you can't get gasoline very well? And I've used that rotary type cutter for years. When I was young at home, we didn't have a gas, lawnmower or anything. We just had to push it along. So I got that. It would be something. It wouldn't be easy. That's why I say some of the stuff will be exhausting, but it would be something that I could use. Or do you think do you have a plan in case you can't mow your yard? Maybe you could put rock, or you have the supplies that you could do something like that. Vacuuming. How many of you have wall-to-wall carpeting? If you don't have power and you go a month or more without power, how are you going to get those carpets cleaned and vacuumed? Well, I bought one of those little tiny, what are they called? In the restaurants where it's static, like little carpet cleaner, they go around vacuuming with this little, it doesn't take power or anything. It's just a little, what are they called? A little Bissell, static like little vacuum cleaner. I got one of those because I tried to have mostly hardwood floors, but I do have a couple of bedrooms, and those will work pretty good in a pinch, if I had to. So start looking as you're cleaning things, as your kids are growing out of things, thinking, what do I need for this or that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and also, thank you, Colleen. She said, I just got voted in for membership at my church. I found a great group of friends. Thank you for talking about going to church. We will use that $10 to send out another Bible.
Thank you. So glad to hear that.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's see. Somebody said, be grateful you have a lawn to mow. We had to let ours die several years ago. Luxury now to water our lawn. So that's another thing. When we moved in here, the people before us, they watered the entire lawn. And their water bill was like $350 a month. I'm like, I'm not paying $350 a month to water my lawn. And so when we moved in, we only water just a small section around our house. Just a small section around our house. And then the rest of it dies. Why we're having to mow so much right now is because it's spring. And we got all our rain for the year this spring. And then in probably 2 weeks, we're not going to have any more rain, and it's all going to just go dormant. And it won't grow anymore. So,
but you may have to do that. I didn't water for years. You know, I had a huge yard, and I didn't water that yard because I couldn't pay the water bill. And you'd be surprised. I was going to say it wasn't that bad, but Tara and the boys might say differently. But, you know, sometimes you just have to do that type of thing.
What type of thing?
Let the yard go and not water it.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, you may have to.
You have to.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, take your yard and put in a garden or something. You know, I've had yards where I put in gardens because, I couldn't water that section or something. So, you know, I would put in a garden there, and then I just hand watered with the hose every now and then, but I couldn't water like, well, it was back in Idaho, but anyways, behind our house. And so I could get the hose so far, but I couldn't reach it all. So I just put a strawberry bed there, and it did really, really well. But you're going to have to think outside the box for most of those. Alicia says, we have mostly hardwood floors, so I sweep. Our basement has carpet and the stairs leading to the bedrooms and an upstairs bathroom. Yeah.
Yeah. But one of those little static carpet cleaner things will work good. And they're not very expensive either. I think mine was like $35 or something like that.
Yeah.
They also come in handy. It's not like you're going to leave it sitting on a shelf and never use it. If you have little kids or something, it's really good for picking up all those little tiny Cheerios or whatever gets laid, you know, on the floor too. So you can use it now. It wouldn't be a waste of money, really.
Yeah. Okay, let's see.
Jennifer.
Uh-oh. Oh dear. Okay. Mike, come over here. Take over for a minute.
Well, you want me just to talk? Shall I tell them what you're doing, Tara?
I guess.
Okay. Tara felt really guilty about buying her plants this year and everything. So they had a whole bunch.
Everyone.
They had a whole bunch of like lazy black-eyed Susans. Black-eyed Susans. She had masses of them. So what she decided to do is she advertised them a clump of black-eyed Susans for $5. So she has been running out there all day long digging up these clumps of black-eyed Susans. And what'd she say? She's got all of her plants, I think, paid for already. And there's Jack. He's going to entertain you. You want to dance, Jack, or something, huh? And so she's already paid now for all of her plants that she bought this year to use for that stuff. So she's just been scurrying out there every few minutes digging up plants. Mike feels bad because he said, I didn't want her to feel guilty. I would like her just to have the plants,
she was feeling guilty about it, but I was thinking, you know, it's fine for you to buy some plants for yourself. And of course, now she feels super jazzed about this, but I just think she likes figuring out she can do something and
but you know,
they can succeed that way.
This is a perfect example of if you don't think you've got the money for something, this is the way to do, you know, these things. Now she's got her plants, like I said, paid for, and here she comes with her moolah. So
one thing as we were talking about all the stuff with Grandma, I'll let you take over in a second, is that they didn't buy way too much stuff. Just nobody did back then, and they didn't really. There wasn't nearly as much TV, there wasn't any during the Depression. I don't think. No, because that was before.
No, they used their radios.
And so there's just a lot of stuff that we waste time on more.
They didn't spend a lot of money on entertainment either. You know, the kids went outside and just played. That was their entertainment.
Well, and we've seen a lot of pictures of them with their friends playing cards and doing things outside together and just hanging out. And we don't do that stuff as much.
Mike and I will just take over the show, Tara. Is that okay?
We don't do that stuff as much because we're kind of just sitting in front of a device away from everyone we know, getting more lonely.
Yeah.
Getting more lonely while surrounded by people.
Can you tell he's the introverted or the extroverted family? Crazy Prepper Linda says, my father used the dishwashers to mow his lawn. Oh, I get it. The kids.
Oh, yeah, the kids.
I'm like, what? How do you use a dishwasher to mow the lawn?
Tara does too. I did too.
I didn't get that one, dude.
But you know, I even have a pair of hand clippers. How many of you do edgers and weed eaters? You may not be able to use those much longer. You know, if they're electric, well, you just may not, or gas or anything. So I had to hand clip my folks' yard and my yard for years with just a pair of hand clippers. I survived, you know, I really did. It was work.
Says, don't tempt me with suggesting to buy a goat for grass. If somebody suggested that, that's what I was going to say. You may have to buy a goat to get food.
Well, I saw somebody advertise they were wanting somebody's land or something where they could put their grass-eating goats on, which would be a win-win. They'd have a place to put the goats, and somebody would get their yard done, you know. So you can barter things like that too, or think of all these ways you could start bartering if you had to in a crisis.
Hello, Gibby. She's an apron's on here. Hello, my friend. Okay. Yes, we went to the park, played outside, went swimming during the summer. Every day was
your
so much
bikes,
fun.
went roller skating with your
jumped rope. Yeah. All of those things. Let's see. Denise. Oh, wait. Sharon says, I grew up duck walking around a picket fence with hand clippers. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
How did my mother come up with my name? My dad came up with my name.
Her dad liked Tara. Is it Tara? T-A-R-A. But he wanted something different, so he added the W in there.
Well, he said he watched Gone with the Wind and liked the name on the plantation.
Well, it's Tara. The plantation in Gone with the Wind is Tara.
No, it's Tara.
Well, some people pronounce it Tara, some Tara. It's T-A-R-A is pronounced Tara sometimes, but.
Well, I mean, I thought they pronounced it Tara in the movie. Did they not?
I don't know.
Oh, great. I think they did.
Maybe they did.
Now I'm going to have to go watch it again. Actually, I hated that movie. It was a stupid movie. Had no ending.
You didn't like her coming down with the curtains, wearing the
curtains?
That
funny,
was frugal. You know, that was a good idea.
That was funny, but it had no ending. I spent 3.5 hours watching a movie with no ending. Let's see. Diane, my husband really wants a $900 pool cue. He sold ham radios and old cues to pay for the new one. He was proud of himself.
Well, you know, that's a way to do this stuff.
Funny.
You know, really, it's so much better than just charging on a credit card.
Well, and that's what I've been doing because I knew this year was going to be expensive, having to get soil and having to get new plants started and all of this. I knew it was going to be a lot. So I've sold over $200 worth of, well, now like $230, $40 worth of stuff so that I don't feel guilty buying all my plant stuff. So I don't feel bad at all. Let's see. All right. Okay. Sorry. I was trying to get caught up here. Let's see. Oops. Sorry. Wrong thing I'm looking at here. Judy says, we are so spoiled that we're never satisfied. I'm so thankful we are all able to have, but joy is gone from so many people's lives. We need God and joy back. Yes, we do. Bird says, I used to glorify my mom's life in the 30s and 40s, but she would quickly say that life was hard, milking cows, picking floors, scrubbing laundry, hauling water, chopping wood. Yeah.
You know, just heating with a wood burning stove. Of course, I had an 1890s old potbelly stove, so it wasn't airtight or anything. But you don't realize the minute the wind blows, everything's covered in soot. You know, you have grimy, and soot is really, it's not just a fine powdery dust. It has like an oil base to it or something, and it's black, gooky, sticky kind of like stuff that gets on the furniture, that gets on the walls and the windows, and just to keep that stuff clean. That's why people used to have spring and fall cleaning, because as soon as spring came around, they stopped burning that stove. So then they would wash all the windows and get that black soot off the windows. They'd bring down the curtains that had the black soot on them, and they'd wash the curtains and get rid of that black soot. That's why they had spring cleaning, to get that deep cleaning of all that black soot, so they could go all summer long with a relatively clean house, you know, and that type of thing. So that's why I keep saying this stuff is a lot of hard work that you have to do. Just hauling the firewood in, you know, to start the fire and carrying that in for enough wood for one day. Unless you burn, you know, at Christmas, you start a fire with a few little logs and you sit in front of your fire in the living room and it's warm and toasty and nice. But when you have to heat with that wood like that all the time, you bring in loads and loads of wood, you know, to keep the fire going. So it's work, you know, it really is.
Carrie says, my 3-year-old granddaughter spent 2 hours entertaining, feeding, and talking to a pecan yesterday. It looked like a turtle. We need to think like toddlers. Oh, I could see that. I'm going to sit down in Walmart and do that.
Oh, that's cute. Oh, that's good.
Oh my
yeah.
goodness, that's hilarious.
Just that is good.
Yes, this is true. Yeah, Jack used to.
Walmart, they might not be too surprised.
Yeah,
Walmart
wouldn't
wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, Jack used to help me when he was little, and he would drag everything out of the cabinets, and then he'd help me clean. Yes, you over there, Mr. Birthday Boy next week. He's going to be 13 next week.
I know.
Dave's going to be 19. I'm like,
know.
dudes, you got to stop. Marilyn says, when people are busy staying alive, less time to get in trouble. That's actually the problem we have nowadays.
Yeah.
Is people just have way too much time on their hands.
You won't be bored and you won't get in trouble.
Yeah, they just have way too much time on their hands. CJ's Country Life. When I was growing up, we lived with a wood stove to cook and heat every spring. It was a lot of work along with washing ceilings and walls.
Yeah, exactly. I had a yellow wall and that black soot would get on there. Mm-hmm. And it got to the point I couldn't even get it off because it was just kind of staining it. Yeah, Lady Catherine says, when the wood coal stove puffed back due to the wind, the chimney, my entire floors were covered in every single item in soot. I know. Mm-hmm. Well, and then you wouldn't want to have that much stuff because then you have to clean all that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Amazing Grace Ranch, I have extra cucumbers plants. Maybe I could sell them. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I just bought some tomato plants from a lady, some tomatoes and peppers from a lady, because she grew too many and she was selling them for $2 and Walmart's selling them for $5. So I went and got a lot of because my tomatoes and peppers they weren't doing that great. And now they're finally starting to take off. So I'm going to have cucumbers out the wazoo in a couple of Another thing we're thinking about doing too, and of course we live in a smaller town, so we can do that here. But like in Idaho, we set a little wooden table on the corner. My house was on a corner of 2 streets, and we'd set the wooden table on there. We had a wooden box bolted in there, and it had a lid that was padlocked with a little hole in the lid. And we'd set chives and tomatoes, a couple of different things she had extra just out on that table. And on the honor system, people would put money in. You know, we put the price of them, and they'd put money in that little box. Everybody paid. It was really amazing. Nobody stole the stuff or anything. And so you can sell stuff just by doing something like that, your extra garden produce, you know.
Any suggestions about water if you're on a water system in town and it stops working? Wondering if you could collect barrels and gutters and downspouts. Yeah. Well, first of all, have at least 3 days of water on hand. Yeah. But yes, you can hacksaw off your gutter and just stick a trash can or a rain barrel or whatever you want to do under it. As a matter of fact, we're thinking about just going ahead and doing that now, although we have water here, but we have a couple of water sources. But I would definitely do whatever you can.
And see, I have an extra trash can here, a large, big trash can that I don't use. And I was going to have the trash company remove it and not have it sitting there. And I thought, no, I'm going to keep that because if I need to, then I can fill that up with water if I have to.
Sarah, what's your opinion on buying a solar powered generator to plug devices in? I saw one online for $700 to $800. I mean, I guess if you have the money, go ahead. We don't have any type of generator at all. We're just gonna go for it.
But a solar panel one would be the best way to go.
I thought about getting a solar one, just a small solar one, just to charge our phones. Maybe our computers, I don't know. I was thinking about doing a solar generator review, but then when I looked at the price and they were $1,200, I'm like, is it really worth getting a $1,200 generator? I don't know.
The only thing is in a major, major emergency where everything all around goes down, will anybody have, phones for you to call them, or will the internet be down? So will you really need those types of things is what I'm,
Yeah.
is another question you might want to, it depends on what situation you're preparing for.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I
And-
mean, I guess if you have the money, it might be.
And
worth
that's
it, but-
one thing you guys need to kind of think about too, is when she was talking about her small appliances and things, a lot of you are used to using your big KitchenAid mixers, stand mixers, and all kinds of, air fryers.
I will tell you, right, hold on. Mom is prejudiced against KitchenAid mixers.
I have a KitchenAid.
We're
little
starting a
mixer.
new form of racism, and it's where people who use KitchenAid mixers.
I have a KitchenAid hand mixer. It's just
no,
the
that's
stand.
stand mixers.
It's the stand mixers, yes.
You are not
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah, I'm not one with one. But anyway, the thing is, what you've got to realize, look at these appliances and think, the stuff I normally cook with this, do I have enough utensils or whatever that I can cook without them? Do I know how to cook without them? If you're used to using a chopper to chop everything up, do you know how to properly chop something without doing it, and that type of thing? So I'm prejudiced towards choppers. I don't mind choppers as much as the mixers, but I have never used a chopper really. I just cut everything in my hand, and so I don't even have a cutting board. I don't. So
Yeah.
But I'm not prejudiced against cutting boards.
No, but you are against KitchenAid
But I
mixers.
that's another. That would be a fun video for me to do, KitchenAid mixers, stand mixers. I think that would be hilarious to do that.
Linda says, back to the strawberry story. Didn't you have to water the strawberry plants? Yes, I did. But so I used a watering can for what I couldn't reach. But then we lived in Idaho, and it actually rained enough that I didn't really have to water a lot in Idaho. Not too much.
And I was in Kansas, and I didn't have to water that much. Something like, if I had a tomato plant or something like that.
Yeah.
If you do a smaller amount, it's not too bad.
CJ's Country, I had an overabundance of rhubarb this year and sold a bunch and made $100.
Wow.
I still have some left, and I'm thinking about doing the same
I
thing.
need to take some home today.
It's be $5.
I'm going to try dehydrating my rhubarb. I've never done that before. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to experiment and see if it'll work. I'm going to stick a piece on, because I'm doing up some apples, so I'm going to stick a piece on.
I don't know.
Because I know they may have some rhubarb drinks. You put rhubarb in lemonades, I think, and that type of thing to make nice flavor.
Yeah,
so
that
I
might be
thought,
good.
well, if I dehydrate that and then grind it into a powder and put it into lemonade, or even maybe, I don't know, I'll come up with something like that.
Yeah. Margie says, I could be wrong, but to me, a generator is a very expensive temporary fix. If it's propane and if it's solar and the grid is down, you'll likely not have internet anyway. Yeah.
I kind of agree with
That's
that
kinda what we're
myself. In my mind,
Yeah.
I think if I don't have any power at all and nobody else has power, will this work, is how I think.
Bluebird, how do you chop vegetables without a cutting board? We just do it on the counter.
I do,
In my hand.
in my hand.
Yeah.
Cut in my hand.
People just absolutely have a conniption.
I know.
When we do that on the show,
I've never cooked on the show because I could just see everybody. And do you know, one time I tried cutting with a butcher knife on a cutting board, and I about cut my hand off. And I did it just like they say you're supposed to do, but it was worse. So I've never cut myself with doing it. I didn't want to say that. Now I'm gonna cut myself.
Oh,
but
I've
no.
cut myself a lot of times.
Oh, Tara has, yeah.
Amazing Grace, how do you separate flowers at the root to sell them? You just separate them. I mean, I just take a shovel, or I have an old
Sharp
kitchen.
shovel.
I have an old kitchen knife that I will saw through some of them. Some flowers separate better than other flowers. I have this one particular perennial sunflower type flower that does not like to be separated, but I absolutely love the plants. So the best time to separate them and to transplant them is on a cloudy day or at night before you go to bed, like at 7 o'clock at night, and then they have all night to recover before the hot sun the next day. And if you're doing it for selling them, then I would do it that night, put it in the pot. Now, like what I was just doing, as the people come for my black-eyed Susans, I get a dining on a dime box, dig up a clump, throw it in there, and hand it to them. I don't even plant it in anything. I just give them the clump and then they take it. So,
and it doesn't hurt the roots as much as you think, because when you take the plants out of the little pots that you get at the store, Tara always says you're supposed to break it up and loosen those roots up, because then they'll relax and grow better if you do that. So when you chomp down, those roots are pretty hardy. You can kind of fiddle with them.
Heather wants to know why you're prejudiced against stand mixers.
Oh.
Oh man,
that's a whole video.
Don't get her started, please.
Poor Tara. Every year before I do my gingerbread man, she's just I call her and say, "Be prepared. I'm going to have to use the stand mixer."
That's your own darn fault. I keep telling you to stop doing it, and you won't listen to me.
I know, and I just do it. So yeah.
Bounty in the Badline says, "I wouldn't trade my dehydrator. She loves it."
Oh, I love my dehydrator. My vacuum sealer and my dehydrator are my two favorite.
JC has an old hand mixer, egg mixer that she'll never get rid of. Yeah, those are nice.
Those are
too.
good to have. Mm-hmm.
Lacey says rhubarb powder with strawberry puree and lemonade sounds good, especially if it's kind of slushy. Yeah, that might be good.
And I was wondering if you could sprinkle it in a strawberry pie, because they make rhubarb and strawberry pie a lot, and I thought that might be good.
Allie says I dehydrate rhubarb. Sorry, for rhubarb bread like zucchini bread.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Mm-hmm.
Between my cutting board and my KitchenAid, Sandy says we might kick her off our channel. Let's see. Learn what grows in your area. Don't waste precious water or fertilizer on something that will die. If it doesn't get watered every day, adapt to your area and plant. Heirlooms that will reseed. Yes and no. So heirlooms are good, but they also, the reason why heirlooms went out of popularity is because they get diseases really bad. And so the new, where they've bred the tomatoes and all that to resist the fungus and the bacteria and all of those things, because they get these diseases really easy. So
just be aware of that, when you're using those types of things.
Everyone wants to garden like grandma did with heirloom crops and all that, but the reason why grandma's not using heirloom crops anymore is because she had to fight blight, and she had to fight powdery mildew, not powdery mildew, but all of these funguses and everything. And now they have disease-resistant plants. So, I mean, yes and no. So, Michelle says, I bought your Dining on a Dime cookbook years ago. I'm wondering if your second cookbook has new recipes. Yes.
They're all new.
They're all new recipes. Well, there's 2 recipes from the regular dining. One for banana bread and one for muffins. But I added like 30 variations that we couldn't put in the new book that I really wanted to add in there. So there's only 2 recipes out of like 300 recipes or something. Over 800 recipes and tips. So Diane says, my mom always used a paring knife to cut. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I don't own any butcher knife or anything like that. I just have 2 little knives like this.
Let's see. Do your houses have fuse boxes to stop the power surges? We do in New Zealand. Yeah, but we don't really have power surges here.
Well, somebody said.
What is the best?
Somebody said that her mother's house, all the appliances got damaged.
Oh, somebody said their mother's house got appliances damaged.
Like
so we think that happened at our last house, actually. We had a lightning strike and didn't realize it. And we lost a lot of our appliances.
We do have breakers,
but it doesn't always help. What is the best for growing herbs inside? Nancy wants to know, sun or window seal with grow lights. You can do either one. I mean, sun I think is easier, so I would do that. Apparently there's a whole bunch of people saying we have a bad attitude. Well, get over it.
I think only one.
The one person, get over it. The other 1,091 people love us. So, I requested Jill.
And guys, we're just giving you examples to try to help you. If you don't like them, you don't need to use any of these examples. Just do what you feel like would work best for you. Go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Thank you for addressing the image that's projected over social media versus practical realities and ideas for living, not magazine living. Well, yeah. I mean, people just don't live in reality anymore. It's like,
and you know, if you really are wondering about some of these things, one of the things that's helped me more than anything, and I know it might sound kind of boring in a way, but I have studied history and it's easy on the internet now, especially history where like women's diaries from back then. And you can get a real good idea of how they lived, what they used at those times, you know, how they did things much better than like, you know, things that are happening now. You just, okay, I'll tell you this. I saw in a Reader's Digest 100 years ago, just about, it felt like.
That's because you're 127.
I am getting close. Oh. Mom said I was 127, Jack. He can't hear. And so in this Reader's Digest, it had a funny cartoon, and it showed of these archaeologists from the future, like 2600 or something like that, and they discovered this, dug up this home from 2000 or, you know, a date like that long past, and they were looking and they found this thing. Well, it was a toilet, the toilet, you know, seat, or the whole toilet. And the archaeologists are looking at this toilet thinking, look at this ceramic thing. Isn't this beautiful? It's shiny and it's well made. What do you think it was for? And they said, I don't know. It looks like it might be a throne for a king or something. And it was a toilet, you know. And so I always think,
was a throne.
Yeah, it was a throne, wasn't it? But I think of that every time people say things like from the 50s and stuff. You don't really know what it was like back then unless you lived there. But the letters and the diaries of people that lived at that time are much closer than like the magazines, or even like they used books on homemaking. Well, we have a lot of books on homemaking that tell you what would be ideal, but most of us don't follow all those how to clean your house books to a T. You know, or if we do follow them, we do it for 1 week or 2 weeks and we think we give this up. So, you know, it's not a reality. But that's why I say, if you can, study the history, and they'll help you figure out, how can I live without electricity? How can I live without running water? What did they do then?
Lukewarm No More says, Abraham Lincoln said, don't believe everything you hear on the internet.
Yeah, I know. I love that one.
That's one of my favorites, actually.
It is.
Kimberly says, want to know how bad it was in the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl years? There are plenty of movies that show it. Think of Little House on the Prairie, or think of Sarah Plain and Tall. Yeah, but you know what? My great-grandmother actually lived through the Dust Bowl in southeastern Colorado, and those movies don't even come close. They don't even come close to saying how bad it was. I mean, it was.
She tells how it was so bad that snails came out. For some reason, the way the whole ecosystem or whatever was messed up, they'd have millions of snails that would be all over the roads. And when they drive down these roads, they would, you know, crunch all the snails, and they would slide off and have horrible accidents from these snails being on the roads. That there were rabbits that just took over everything and ate stuff. And the grasshoppers, when they'd come through, and
they ate the green off the tractors.
Yeah, or they'd eat all the shovel handles or the clothes that were hanging on the clothesline with the clothespins, you know. And you can't get the full impact. And here are these farmers that lived way out. They literally lived way out. How do you replace all this stuff at one time? You know, they didn't have insurance. We think of, well, if they lost a home or something, it's no big deal to fire or whatever. They didn't have insurance. They lost everything. They had nothing.
I mean, it can give you an idea, but I think it really just does not justify how bad it was.
The dirt and the grime that got into the house seeped through the doors, and you know, in every nook and cranny. Can you imagine the dirt just flying? Well, we've had dust storms. I've been through a dust storm in that same part of the country, and I just couldn't believe the impact or what it was like, how bad that stuff can get into everything. The food, that was one thing they had trouble with. They tried to fix a meal, and and the food in the cabinets would just be full of dust and grit and dirt and that type of thing.
Dee Dee says, I found out a few days ago that I need to move. Is it worth taking my 3 months worth of preps with me if I end up having limited space, which I anticipate? That's just a judgment call. You'll have to.
It depends on how far you're having to move. Are you going to have to pay extra for a larger trailer, add up the expense for the extra trailer, and so do a little bit of calculating like
well, and
that.
if you do end up deciding to take things, take the expensive things like the canned meats. Sugar and flour is fairly cheap, so and big and bulky.
And big and bulky, yeah.
So I would take things like your canned meats, expensive canned vegetables. I can't think of anything off the top of, but I'm thinking like artichokes or something, which isn't really a prepping food. But just think of the more olives are a little bit more expensive, I guess.
Smaller items and more expensive items.
So you'll just have to use a judgment call on that, because I don't know how much space you have or anything like that, so you'll have to just kind of decide.
And if you're having somebody come in, a professional company move you, they move by weight, so you might think about the lighter things, in that case too, lighter and expensive.
Yeah. My mom. Now this is important, actually. Grandma 54 says, we had several houses catch on fire in our area from lightning strikes. As some say, homeowners insurance never covers everything. We all go in and donate. But here's the thing. Make sure your policy covers the replacement of your house and your stuff. In Colorado, they're having issues with wildfires taking people's houses out. And let's say they bought their house for $150,000. But I have it just fine for $150,000. But their house is now worth $800,000, and it would cost probably $1 million to rebuild it. The insurance, they didn't up their insurance, so they won't cover to rebuild. So you have to make sure that you have the replacement coverage on your insurance. You are responsible for calling your insurance company. And yeah, you're going to pay more, but do you want to pay more, or do you want to just absolutely lose everything and have to start all over again? So, especially if you have your house paid off or something like that, you really want to make sure. Especially if you have your
house paid off.
Let's see. Amy, want to find out how to live without electricity or city water? Spend a day with an Amish or off-grid homesteading family. Yeah, that's a good way. But I will tell you, the Amish, they ain't living off-grid. They use cars to go into town. They use a cell phone for work. They go to a phone if they need to. They're not actually really off-grid. And so, yeah, they may, and I mean, like, they use propane for the refrigerators. So they still have refrigerators and stuff like that. They still use modern conveniences.
Although it would help ease you in.
Yeah.
It would help ease you in to get used to some of that lifestyle, and it wouldn't be such a jolt to you if you wanted to work your way up into doing something like that.
Yeah. South River Loop, or Lupe, I don't know, River Homestead says our insurance agent told us building costs are so high right now that it's a big problem with them covering. Yeah, you need to make sure you have enough insurance to cover a rebuild for your house. And they use solar for their house. Yeah, the Amish use solar. I'm like, what? The Amish, I mean, they're really nice people and all of this, but
well, they're not as much,
everything that
they're not as much off-grid and all that type. They do but they've got it down well, and so that's why I say it would be a good a step in between to find out how to work your way towards that.
Just like with Grandma.
Just like with, oh yeah.
People glorify the Amish, but they actually use a lot of modern technology. They really do.
With Grandma and the ideas that we think Mike said, about Grandma, what she did, we do the same thing with the Amish sometimes.
Yeah. Let's see. Mindy says she just made the shake and bake from our Dining on a Dime cookbook. The pork chops were hit.
Oh,
yay!
good.
That's wonderful. And thank you guys. Everybody's been putting in here all the stuff you've been making. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, guys.
Our books are 25% off right now. right now. I have volume 2 here. And then we also have, these aren't on sale because I only have a few until I can find a printer, but our daily planners, guys, right here in stock. Yep, Mom will show you the other one. We have these 2 left in stock. The green one, I think, are sold out. Aren't the Hooterites more hardcore though? No. Here they aren't. They drive cars and everything here. They just all work together in one like commune type thing. Okay, let's see. Saw an Amish person talking on a cell phone. Yeah, I mean, they use cell phones all the time for their work. They're not allowed to use it for personal, but they can go and use a landline for personal that the community shares and that kind of thing. But, you know, that's in the Bible. That's called works and not grace. They're doing all these things to work their way into heaven. It's not true gift from God. They're working their way instead of just accepting the gift that God has given us, you know, by Jesus dying on the cross and being resurrected. He died for our sins, gave us that gift. But there are many religions, and the Amish is one of them, that you have to add works on top of that. And it's just not the case. But, you know, that's what they believe. So let's see. It depends on the sect they are in. You're describing Mennonite in most cases. I'm not describing Mennonite. No, there's a lot of Amish. They use cars to go into town. Now, they don't, I mean, it's not their car. I maybe misspoke. It's not their car. They hire people to drive them. They hire the English people, the normal people to drive them.
And the different sects do differently.
But, and there's varying strictness according to, you know, what they live. So, let's see. Let's see. I live in an Amish area and you see them out in buggies all the time. There are also lots of accidents with people running into them. People need to slow down. You need to slow down. No, I'm talking about they use hired taxis or cars or other people basically Amish Uber is what it is, what you would describe it like. Tanya says, just getting back on. I decided to play some Frisbee with my son tonight. We'll go play Frisbee.
Yes.
Supply chain issues are affecting homeowners' claims because the policies cover a cost of repair at the time of loss. If the work is delayed, the repair cost might go up before the repair is completed. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Think about that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's true. They don't always get it done real quick. Like we are trying to get the studio kitchen electrified. the stove electricity put in. And I was shocked that he told us it was going to be a month, because I honestly thought it was going to be 3 or 4 months. But he told us it was going to be a month, but they said that they're getting behind on stuff.
It's been no less than 2 months for everybody that I've talked to for stuff. So
So Tony, my grandma told me the 20-pound bag of potatoes froze in the Depression times. They still had to eat those potatoes. It was all they had. She ran through them a sieve after cooking and made soup and fried mush. Yes.
And that's a good point. You know, you'll need to get over some of your food phobia type stuff. I don't know what else how to call it, because you may just have to eat what you have on hand. I had an aunt that they had, I don't know how many, Aunt really had 8 kids, something like that, a whole slew of kids. And one winter, all what they had to eat was onion sandwiches all winter long for every meal. And so there's not going to be a lovely, luscious, table full of food. You're going to have to eat just what you have. And you say, well, nobody could survive on onions and bread. You can. You'd be surprised how people can survive and what they can survive on. So you probably won't have a totally nutritious meal or, and that type of thing, but you just eat what you can when you get hungry.
Yep. All right, guys, please visit us at livingonadime.com. We are going to go for now. Check out our cookbooks and our planners. If you want a free Bible, we have those also. If you do not have a Bible, we give them for free. And just go to Living on a Dime, click on the shop, click on free Bible, and there's a coupon code free Bible right there. Just enter that in, and it is yours, and we will send that to you. Visit us livingonadime.com. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye, guys.
Oh, I guess I got to do it. Oops, still not there.